Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you, this time talking episode 18 of season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. called The Frenemy of My Enemy. And now after a really long time, kind of mostly off screen, we get to see Ward again along with Agent 33, and this is really kind of, a lot of it is getting Ward back into the mix because frankly, he's much more interesting as kind of a wild card with his own agenda than he is as just sort of straight-laced S.H.I.E.L.D. agent guy. So let's just kind of get right into things. Just sort of talk about everybody and what's going on, and let's start small. Nothing really huge to say about what was going on with May and the whole Simmons thing. I'm kind of on Simmons' side here. I don't really buy into May's argument that real Shield was going to figure it out eventually that Simmons helped Fitz steal the toolbox. Real Shield have been showing themselves to be pretty stupid, so yeah, no, I don't think they were going to figure that out at all. And May just sort of outed Simmons for no real good reason. Although, considering that, Bobby doesn't seem super upset about all this, and the conversation she has with Mac, it does sort of seem to be dawning on these guys that, you know, Gonzalez might be a good guy, but he's a guy with rather poor priorities at the moment. He's really focusing on Coulson, who's up to something weird, but probably not something sinister. Meanwhile, Hydra is totally out there getting up to some seriously bad stuff. As we see in this episode, I mean, we even have Dr. List guest starring. He appeared in the teasing credits at the end of Winter Soldier. He's going to have a role in Age of Ultron. I guess it's this week's episode is going to have the firm tie-in to whatever happens in Age of Ultron, and you keep in mind is that as I'm recording this, that movie has not come out here in the United States. It's going to be coming out on Friday, and today's Sunday, so we'll find out whatever the tie-in is on Tuesday, and then I finally get to see the movie on Friday. And I've really been trying hard to avoid spoilers for the movie, even though it's been out overseas for something like 2 weeks. But in any case, so yeah, not a fan of May this episode. Let me see here. Again, beyond that, nothing really particular to say about Bobby or Mac or Simmons. Fitz finally gets to be around Ward again, and at first he's just like obviously unhappy but willing to put up with it, and then as soon as Ward starts trying to act all buddy, he like has to be physically restrained from attacking the guy, which is totally understandable since he considered Ward to be his friend, and then Ward tried to murder him and caused him to get this brain damage, which really screwed him up pretty badly. I did like how Hunter put the whole situation. This is part of the job. Making alliances of expediency with terrible people. I mean, you can say a lot about Hunter, but never say the man is not a realist. He's a guy who has his feet very firmly planted on the ground. Somebody who really knows what's what, and I admire that in people. I admire folks who are straight shooters and are the ones who are willing to say the things that need to be said, no matter how unpleasant it might be to hear. I think those people sort of perform a valuable service to society. But I'm kind of rambling here. So let's see. I was rather surprised by Coulson, agreeing to go in and be taken back by Bobby and Mac at the end. And you just sort of look at that and you go, "What in the world is Coulson planning?" And, obviously there's going to be some hard questions asked about what the hell is Theta Protocol. I just keep thinking of that game Alpha Protocol whenever I hear that. Flawed game, but, it had its good points. But yeah, I think he's really going to deliver a good old-fashioned moral browbeating to Gonzalez once he gets there, and, really kind of has to put it on the table in front of everybody as to why he's been doing the way he is, and just the way Gonzalez is assuming that anybody who's enhanced is bad. So we'll have to see how things go there. So on the Inhuman side of things, Skye's mom kind of comes off as more than a little bit of an asshole this episode, basically saying, yeah, we're going to have to ditch Cal and yeah, obviously he's gonna flip out and probably kill some innocent people, but I gotta look after my own, and basically she doesn't care if Cal flips out and murders innocent people. And while this is understandable, her job is to look after the potential Inhumans and all. The fact that she's acting like this is like, we're just gonna dump him in the middle of Milwaukee, and whatever happens, that's not on us. This is ridiculous because, one, Cal knows at least a fair bit about what's going on with the Inhumans. I mean, he at least has some knowledge of them, probably more than anybody outside of their little community. And it's not like that information couldn't potentially be valuable. So, while there are consequences for keeping Cal around, it seems to me it would be much simpler just to sort of keep him where he's happy and cooperative. Spend a little bit of time hanging out with the guy. Go and have dinner with him a couple of times a week. And there he's at least they're in control of the guy for the most part. I mean, we've shown he can't bust out of that building he's in. So again, seriously, why not just keep him there? Or if that's such a big deal, just dump him on an island, a little deserted island in the middle of the ocean somewhere. Have Lincoln pop out there once in a while to leave him some supplies. Or here's an idea: drug his food, dump him somewhere that's with a nice sturdy lock, and then tip S.H.I.E.L.D. off as to where he is. It's not like Skye doesn't have Coulson's phone number. Or May's. And then he's going to get thrown in super jail or whatever the hell. Now granted, that does sort of put him in a position where he might give that info up to S.H.I.E.L.D, but he's probably not going to do that, seeing as how that would put his wife and daughter in danger. So Jiang's handling this whole situation is monumentally stupid. And apparently Lincoln gets to be on the secret that Skye is her and Cal's daughter, because I don't know, I guess you can't keep secrets from your personal assistant or whatever the hell his relationship with Jiang is. So yeah. Honestly, I really like this as an episode for really fleshing Cal out. I mean, we learned that Calvin Zabo, his name from the comics, was intended as an alias to be more menacing. I mean, they never said Zabo, but people who know the comics will know what it is. Skye finally finds out that if she'd been raised by her parents, that her name would have been Daisy Johnson, which is, of course, the name of her counterpart in the comics. And I especially like sort of Cal wandering around his old neighborhood in Milwaukee, just sort of being frustrated and disappointed at all the changes. It's kind of like how I feel when I go back to my hometown. I haven't spent much time there for like 8 years. I mean, I've gone back from time to time, and for the most part it's the same, but things have changed, and there's definitely some changes that have happened that I don't particularly care for. I mean, it's very disappointing in a lot of ways. But, that's life. But, seeing him spend that time with Skye and even seeing her enjoy it for the most part, that really did a lot to humanize him. Which just sort of made what he did to himself, turning himself into Mr. Hyde, all the more tragic. This guy, this was apparently a fundamentally decent guy, a member of Doctors Without Borders, who just wanted his daughter back. And of course, this all sort of builds into the enormous, clusterfuck that happens at the office building, between the Inhumans and Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. And I have to say, that was all pretty darn exciting. Just everybody is coming up in this colossal free-for-all that was really, really just fun as hell. Of course, this does not end well. Coulson's had to turn himself into real S.H.I.E.L.D, who, thanks to him hacking Deathlock, think that he's working with Hydra because he was hanging out with Ward, which admittedly doesn't help his case. Lincoln and Deathlock have been captured. Hydra has Bakshi back, and the guy may or may not still be brainwashed. And obviously, Ward is planning to stab Team Coulson in the back first chance he gets. Now, I love watching Coulson and Ward, working together again. And of course, the whole thing with Coulson, like, okay, if you do help us, we'll give you a clean slate, but you have to agree to undergo the Tahiti process. The thing where they cut open your skull and they stick your brain with stuff that makes you say, "Please let me die." course Ward isn't going to agree to that. And of course, Coulson was probably planning on some way of like, yeah, we're totally going to throw Ward in prison after all this is over. And of course, both of them realize that a backstabbing is inevitable, but they do still fall very quickly back into that old rhythm of having worked together, which I just love. And I also really enjoy just sort of those little moments between Ward and Kara, aka Agent 33, that shows that as messed up it might be, these two seem to have a real relationship. He's bringing her that little plant, and they're talking about their house. So it's just sort of fun, weird to imagine these two have a house somewhere, and they like wake up and have breakfast and talk about mundane bullshit every morning. Yeah, and yet that's kind of the life that most people really want, to have somebody to wake up next to in the morning and talk about just ordinary day-to-day stuff with over breakfast. I remember a conversation I had with a friend of mine in college, and we were talking about, life and love and romance and all this other whatnot. And I said to him, you know what? I think love really is. It isn't all those fancy romantic gestures and, Valentines and all that. What I think real love really is being able to wake up in the morning next to the same person and find and discover that you still give a damn about what they have to say over breakfast beyond we're out of orange juice. And well, I suppose my future as a romantic poet is probably not a promising one. I do genuinely believe that because, well, as the wise John Mellencamp once said, life goes on long after the thrill of living is gone. Well, the same is true for love. At least in my book. So let's see, what else do we have to talk about? Yeah, actually, I think that kind of covers everything I had to say about this episode. Again, just a really fun, twisty episode. Lots of nice action, interesting stuff going on with the characters. Not without its flaws, but still, all in all, a pretty fun episode. And yeah, well, actually, no, I do have one more thing to say. And this episode, this episodes around here have once again kind of been hit by the problem that was really strangling season one. Is there's something big that's going to be happening in one of the Marvel movies, and these guys kind of have to build up to it, aka spin their wheels, until that hits. Now, last year, after Winter Soldier, the show got immeasurably better once we saw Winter Soldier. It was just like, oh shit. I mean, once that whole Hydra thing happened, I was sitting in the theater, this crappy theater someplace in Michigan, actually. And I just remember thinking, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this week. And it was awesome. Out of the darkness and into the light, hail Hydra and all that other craziness. I mean, that was good. So you have to wonder, well, what all is going to happen with Age of Ultron? I had the feeling it's not going to be quite as big, but nonetheless, I'm definitely looking forward to it. So, in any case, guys, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, subscribe, and of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.